Hello, my name is Bryce Cole. I'm 33 years old, and if you ask me about my life, I'd say it's been a long journey full of scars, both physical and emotional, that I've learned to carry like badges of honor. I was born and raised in a small town in North Carolina, where red dirt roads and cotton fields stretched to the horizon. Life there was simple, but for me it always demanded discipline and responsibility. That's why I chose the path of the military, a decision that has shaped who I am today. Let me start from the beginning. As a kid, I was the type who liked everything in order. I vividly remember early mornings before the sun even rose, getting up to help my parents with chores. My dad, a former factory worker, always told me, "Son, life doesn't wait for the lazy." He was strict but fair, at least with me. My mom, on the other hand, was a gentlewoman who always tried to keep warmth in our family. They were traditional folks, valuing family above all else. But one thing I can't deny, they always favored my younger brother, Ryan. Ryan is 8 years younger than me, and from the moment he was born, everything seemed to revolve around him. I wasn't jealous, at least not at first, but over time that favoritism dug deep cracks in our brotherly relationship. I joined the U.S. Army right after high school at 18 in 2010 when the world was chaotic with wars in the Middle East. I thought the military would be where I'd find purpose, a place where discipline and principles were revered. And I was right. 8 years in the Army made me a man. I served in Iraq and Afghanistan, witnessing things no one in their 20s should see. Sleepless nights on guard duty, the echo of gunfire and fear creeping into every dream. Once during a patrol in Baghdad, my unit was ambushed. I lost a close friend, and I was wounded in the leg. A long scar still reminds me every time the weather changes. But the military taught me resilience. I learned to control my emotions, to put duty above all else. After 8 years of active duty, I transitioned to the Army Reserve. It was a way to stay connected to the military without being away from home too long. I'm still serving there now, attending regular training and ready for any call-up. The military gave me a significant advantage: the VA loan program for veterans. It's a low-interest home loan with no down payment required. I decided to use it to buy my own house, the first time in my life I had a place to call my own. The house is in a quiet suburb of North Carolina, a peaceful area with oak-lined streets and friendly neighbors. It's a modest 2-bedroom home with a small kitchen and a backyard big enough for a few vegetable patches. I remember the day I moved in, standing in the empty living room, taking a deep breath and thinking, finally a place to breathe. No more living with my parents, no more witnessing petty arguments. It was a reward for years of sacrifice, and I'm proud of it. Every morning I wake up early, brew coffee, and sit on the porch watching the sunrise. Life is simple, but it's mine. But life is never perfect, is it? Let's talk about my family, where all the trouble begins. My parents, as I mentioned, are family-oriented. They love us in their own way, but their favoritism toward Ryan has always frustrated me. Ryan, my younger brother, is now 25, and he's been spoiled since he was a kid. While I struggled with homework, Ryan was allowed to play video games late into the night. When I got punished for not cleaning my room, Ryan just had to cry and everything was fine. We're like water and fire. I'm disciplined, principled. He's irresponsible, lazy. The tension started early. I remember when I was 17, we fought because he took my bike without asking. I was furious. "You need to learn to respect others." He just smirked. "You're always too serious." Those arguments never ended, but I was always the one to back down because I was the older brother. Now, at 25, Ryan is still like an overgrown kid. A year ago, he was fired from his retail job for a terrible work attitude, showing up late, arguing with his boss, and being lazy. Since then, he's been unemployed, mooching off our parents. He lives at their house, spends recklessly, and takes no responsibility. I've tried to talk to him multiple times. The first time, right after he got fired, I called him. "Ryan, you need to change. Life doesn't wait for anyone. Get another job, learn from your mistakes." He laughed it off. "You worry too much, bro. I'll be fine." But he wasn't fine. He kept gaming all night, buying random stuff and ignoring all advice. I tried again, a second time, a third time, even offered to let him stay at my place so I could teach him discipline. But no, he refused, and our parents always defended him. "He's still young, Bryce. Don't be too hard on him." Their coddling turned him into this, and I feel utterly helpless. I love my brother, but every time I look at him, I feel a mix of anger and pity. How can a 25-year-old still not know how to stand on his own? Then came the turning point. A few months ago, I got a mobilization order from the Army Reserve, a short-term assignment to support a unit in another state for 4 months. It wasn't combat, just training and logistics support, but it required me to be away from home. I wasn't too worried. The military taught me to adapt, but I needed someone to look after my house. I gave my parents the keys, asking them to check on it occasionally, clean and pick up mail. "Don't worry, I'll be back soon," I told them. My dad nodded. "Go on, son. Your mom and I will take care of things." My mom was concerned. "Take care of yourself, okay?" I left feeling confident, thinking everything would be fine. My house, the one I poured my sweat and tears into, would be looked after. But that trust opened the door to a nightmare I never saw coming. I didn't know that in my absence, Ryan would take advantage of the situation to turn my life into a living hell. As I drove out of North Carolina toward my new assignment, my heart was full of hope. 4 months wasn't long, and I'd return to my peaceful home. But deep down, there was a faint premonition, like the feeling you get before a storm hits. I pushed it aside, focusing on the mission. The first days at the new unit were hectic, waking up at 4 a.m., running, checking equipment. I settled in quickly, but every night lying in bed, I thought about home. I called my parents a few times to check in. "How's the house?" They gave vague answers. "Everything's fine, don't worry." I didn't suspect anything. Why would I? They're my parents. But that premonition grew stronger. One time I called Ryan just to check in. He answered hurriedly, "I'm good, Bryce. Gotta go, I'm busy." Busy with what? He's unemployed. I shook my head, assuming he was just gaming. The 4 months of deployment passed slowly. During that time, I went through it all. Grueling training sessions in the rain, sleepless nights planning, and moments of intense homesickness. I thought about my backyard garden, my morning coffee. I told myself, just a few more weeks. My buddy Mike would tease, "Bryce, you got a pretty wife waiting at home?" I'd laugh, "Nah, just my new house." But that's enough. I had no idea that when I returned, that house would no longer feel like mine. When I drove away from the military base, it was pitch dark. The highway stretched endlessly, my headlights sweeping over dark fields, and I felt bone-tired. 4 months wasn't long compared to past missions, but this time was different. It was the first time I'd been away from my own house, the one I'd poured my sweat and tears into owning through the VA loan. I pictured it vividly. Unlocking the door, dropping my backpack on the floor, brewing a hot cup of coffee, and sitting on the porch under the stars. No interruptions, no sudden orders. Just the peace I'd craved after years of military life. My heart beat faster when the "Welcome to North Carolina" sign appeared. "Almost home," I whispered to myself, gripping the steering wheel. I arrived around midnight. The suburban street was quiet as always, neighbors' houses dark, only the chirping of crickets breaking the silence. I pulled into the garage, turned off the engine, and took a deep breath. The familiar air, freshly cut grass, and a breeze from the nearby pine forest made me smile. I grabbed my backpack, stepped onto the porch, and slid the key into the lock. The door creaked open, and immediately a strange smell hit me. Not the clean, airy scent I remembered, but a mix of fast food, stale pizza, burgers, mingled with heavy cigarette smoke and sour beer. My heart sank. "What the hell?" I muttered, flipping on the light. The sight before me stopped me cold. My living room, once neatly arranged with a clean leather sofa and organized bookshelf, looked like a dump. Empty beer cans littered the floor, some rolling under the coffee table. Food scraps, burger wrappers, chip bags were scattered everywhere. On the coffee table, cigarette butts overflowed from a plate I used for fruit. And from my bedroom, blared loud music, the bass thumping like a party in full swing. My blood boiled, my hands trembling. This wasn't my house. This was hell. I stepped inside trying to stay calm, but every step crunched on something, a plastic bottle, a dirty sock. "Who's here?" I shouted, my voice drowning out the music. The music abruptly stopped and two figures emerged from the bedroom. Ryan, my brother, in a grubby t-shirt, hair a mess. And next to him, a girl I'd never seen, probably his girlfriend, with dyed red hair and a startled expression. Ryan looked at me, blinking like he'd just woken up, then grinned. "Oh, you're back? Earlier than expected, huh?" I stood frozen, trying to process. What are you doing here? This is my house." My voice shook with a mix of rage and confusion. Ryan shrugged, casual as ever. "You were gone for months, leaving the place empty. Wasteful, you know. Mom and Dad said I could stay here. You're always off on missions, so I figured you wouldn't mind, right?" The girl next to him looked awkward, then slipped back into the bedroom. I looked around, noticing signs of their occupation. Unfamiliar clothes on hangers, makeup on the dresser, a pile of shoes by the door. They'd been living here like they owned the place, throwing parties, evidenced by empty liquor bottles and lingering smoke. I thought back to my calls home over the past 4 months. My parents were always vague. "The house is fine, don't worry." Ryan was rushed. "I'm busy." Now it made sense. They'd planned this behind my back. I stormed to the kitchen, hoping at least that was untouched, but no. The fridge was stuffed with fast food, the floor sticky, dishes piled in the sink. My backyard garden, where I grew vegetables, was overrun with weeds, and it looked like someone had used it as a barbecue pit. Ashes still scattered. It felt like a knife to the heart. This was my house, the reward for 8 years of dedication in the military, for the scars on my body and nightmares from the battlefield. What had they turned it into? I turned back to the living room, facing Ryan. "Get out, now! You're not allowed here," I growled, pointing to the door. But he just smirked. "Chill out. Mom and Dad said I could stay. Besides, I'm jobless. I need a place. You want me out, you'll have to talk to them first." His words were like gasoline on a fire. I pulled out my phone, dialed my dad, heart pounding. After a few rings, his voice came through. "Bryce. You're back? Why are you calling so late?" I couldn't hold back, spilling everything, my voice breaking with anger. "Why did you let Ryan into my house? He's trashed it. I want him out now." There was a pause, then my mom's voice trembling. "Bryce, don't be mad. Ryan's jobless. He needed a place. You're always away. The house was empty. We thought you'd understand. Let him stay. He's your brother." I felt betrayed. "Understand? Ryan's been throwing loud parties all night. The neighbors will complain soon, and he's turned my house into a dump." My dad cut in. "Ryan's young. Don't be so hard on him. Let him stay for a while. And don't you dare kick him out, you hear? If you do, don't expect us to forgive you. Family comes first, got it?" Their threat left me speechless. After everything I'd done for the family. Sending money home, trying to guide Ryan, upholding tradition. They chose him? I hung up, turning to Ryan. He was lounging on the sofa, holding a beer can, looking smug. "I'm staying for a while. You can't kick me out." I wanted to lunge at him, throw a punch, but the military taught me restraint. I had to find another way. Evicting Ryan legally wouldn't be easy. He'd been there for months, and my parents had warned me of the consequences. I felt trapped in a maze with no exit. I decided to move out temporarily. I grabbed a few things, stormed to my car, and drove off into the night. I rented a cheap motel room not far from my house. That night, lying on a stiff bed, tears rolled down my face, not from sadness, but from rage. Rage at my irresponsible brother, my biased parents, and myself for trusting blindly. The next morning I returned, hoping it was all a bad dream. It wasn't. Ryan and his girlfriend were eating breakfast, leftovers from the night before, and the house was still a mess. I tried to talk calmly. "Ryan, you need to clean up." "This is my house." He shrugged. "I'll clean later. I'm busy now." Helpless, I stepped outside. That's when I ran into Mrs. Smith, my neighbor. She said, "Your house has been so noisy, young man." Parties all night, cars parked everywhere. I almost called the police a few times. I felt humiliated, only able to mumble an apology. The neighborhood is full of veteran families who respect each other. Yet my brother had made me a laughingstock, embarrassing me in front of them. I spent days racking my brain, searching for a way to reclaim my house without enraging my parents. I felt more trapped than ever. In the military, I had comrades. Here, I had no allies. Each day, I watched Ryan turn my home, the fruit of years of sweat and blood, into a chaotic battlefield. Standing on the porch, staring at the weed-choked backyard garden, my heart felt heavy. I didn't want war with my family, but I couldn't let this continue. At first, I tried a soft approach to take back my space. I figured if I made things inconvenient for Ryan, he'd leave on his own. My first move was cutting the Wi-Fi, knowing he relied on it for gaming and endless scrolling. I called the provider, requesting a temporary suspension for unpaid bills. That night, Ryan yelled from the bedroom, "Bryce, the Wi-Fi's dead. What did you do?" I played innocent, sipping coffee on the sofa. "Huh, must be a technical issue. Call the provider." He grumbled, clearly annoyed, and I thought I'd won this round. But the next morning, I checked my email and saw the Wi-Fi bill had been paid. Not with Ryan's money, but with my dad's credit card. Not only that, they'd upgraded to a faster plan with double the bandwidth. Ryan sauntered out, smirking. "Mom and Dad took care of it, don't worry." I clenched my fists, feeling like I'd been doused with ice water. Undeterred, I tried another tactic. I cut the power to the upstairs where Ryan had taken over my master bedroom. But 2 days later, I heard drilling from upstairs. An electrician showed up, Ryan had called him, and the bill went to my parents. I called my dad, voice trembling with anger. "Dad, why do you keep enabling him?" He sighed. "Don't make things hard for your brother, Bryce. He's struggling. You're the older one, be patient." Patient? I wanted to scream that Ryan was destroying my home, but I held back. Every word from my dad felt like a stab, reminding me I was alone in this fight. I didn't give up. I locked the fridge with a small padlock, thinking if I cut off his food supply, he'd cave. But Ryan just shrugged, and the next day, a mini fridge appeared in his room, stocked with beer and fast food. I checked the receipt, paid for by my parents. Ryan strolled out, holding a soda, grinning smugly. "Bryce, Mom and Dad always have my back. You can't win." His words hit like a punch to the face. I felt powerless, but worse, I felt hurt. Why did my parents keep supporting and covering for Ryan, a 25-year-old freeloader with no sense of responsibility? Finally, after days in the motel, I decided to move back into my house to assert that it was still mine. But living with Ryan was a nightmare. Every morning I woke to a floor littered with trash, piles of dirty dishes, and the stench of cigarette smoke. He and his girlfriend, a girl named Tara I didn't like, kept throwing parties. Loud music, friends coming and going, and neighbors complaining. Mrs. Smith, the kind neighbor, pulled me aside. "Bryce, I don't want to make a fuss, but you need to get this under control. Last night was noisy until 2 a.m. My face burned with shame as I apologized. I'm a veteran, disciplined, yet now I was seen as the neighborhood troublemaker. I tried talking to Ryan, but it was pointless. "Clean up, this is my house," I said, keeping my voice steady. He just laughed. Yeah, I'll do it tomorrow." Tomorrow never came. Tara started avoiding me, probably uncomfortable. One time I overheard them arguing in the bedroom. Tara shouted, "You said this was your house, Ryan. Now it's your brother's. You lied." She packed her bags and left that night. I thought that might be the end, that Ryan would follow her out. But no, he brushed her off like she never existed. Things went back to normal. Ryan sprawled out playing games, hosting his gamer friends, partying in my house all night. The helplessness drove me close to madness. I couldn't sleep lying awake staring at the ceiling thinking about my military years. There I had comrades who'd have my back through gunfire and chaos. Here, I was alone. Then I remembered Jack Miller, my best friend from the Army, the one person I trusted to understand me now. Jack had left active duty a few years ago and lived about 30 minutes from my house. He was the perfect blend of humor and iron discipline, a classic veteran who could turn a bad situation into a joke but never compromised on principles. I drove to Jack's one afternoon, my heart heavy. His place was a small, tidy apartment with an American flag outside and a small shrine for fallen comrades. Jack opened the door, flashing his familiar grin. "You look like you just patrolled a desert. Come in, tell me what's up." I sat down and spilled everything. Ryan, my parents, the trashed house. Jack listened, nodding occasionally, his eyes glinting like a soldier gearing up for battle. When I finished, he laughed. "That kid's a real headache. But you forgot, Bryce. We're soldiers. We don't quit." Jack suggested a plan, a military-style PSYOPs approach. "I'll come by your place regularly," he said, sipping a beer. "We'll roast him, shame him, make him feel like he doesn't belong." I agreed, though I wasn't sure it would work. But having Jack by my side made me feel less alone. Starting the next day, Jack showed up at my house claiming he was visiting an old buddy, but really to target Ryan. Whenever Ryan sprawled on the sofa, Jack would throw out a jab. Well, Major Ryan, still commanding on the trash pile?" Or when Ryan left stuff scattered, Jack would laugh. "You'd be folding blankets for a month in the Army, kid." At first, Ryan was visibly annoyed. He snapped back. "Who are you to talk? This is my brother's house." Jack just grinned. "Oh, your brother's house? Then why's it a war zone? Soldiers don't live like this," I chimed in, keeping my tone serious. "Ryan, if you're gonna stay, act like an adult." Jack's taunts made Ryan flush, muttering curses before retreating to his room. I thought we were making progress, that Jack's jabs were hitting Ryan's pride. But my brother was more stubborn than I expected. After a few days, he learned to ignore us. He locked himself in his room, blasting music loud enough to drown out Jack's voice. Once, I knocked. "Ryan, turn it down!" He shouted back, "Leave me alone!" Jack looked at me, shaking his head. "This kid's tougher than a Taliban squad." The PSYOPs plan started losing steam. Ryan didn't care about shame or honor. He just wanted to mooch, and with my parents' backing, he knew he was untouchable. The following nights, I lay on my sofa, listening to Ryan's music, feeling defeated. Jack kept coming, kept roasting, but I could tell he was getting frustrated. "Bryce, you need a stronger tactic," he said one evening as we sat on the porch with beers. "PSYOPs isn't enough. Time to make him feel real discipline." I looked at him, a mix of excitement and worry. "What do you mean?" Jack grinned, his eyes gleaming like they did when we planned missions back in the day. "Let me think, but I promise we'll make that kid run for the hills." I nodded, feeling a spark of hope. But deep down, I was afraid. If this failed, I could lose not just my house, but my family. Ryan's my brother, after all, but I couldn't let him ruin my life any longer. This war wasn't over, and with Jack by my side, I was ready to escalate. Jack sat across from me on the porch, his eyes glinting like they did when we planned operations in Iraq years ago. He took a sip of beer and said firmly, "All right, Bryce. Soft tactics aren't working. Time to go hard. Turn your house into a barracks. Live like the military, iron discipline. Let's see how long the kid lasts." I looked at Jack, trying to picture it. "You mean make him wake up early, run, fold blankets?" Jack burst out laughing, his voice echoing in the quiet night. "Exactly. If he can handle it, good for him. You'll have a decent brother. If not, he'll bolt on his own. Either way, you win. Your parents can't blame you because you're not kicking him out. You're just teaching him how to live." Jack's words lit up a dark corner of my mind. It was perfect. If Ryan learned discipline, I'd be happy. If he left, I'd get my house back without my parents' criticism. I stood up, gripping Jack's hand tightly. "Deal." Stay here indefinitely, we'll do this together. Jack nodded, his eyes mischievous. Get ready, Captain. This'll be the most fun battle yet. The next day, Jack moved in. He brought a military duffel bag, a thin mattress, and a training whistle. The kind that sent shivers down my spine, reminding me of boot camp. Ryan was sprawled on the sofa, headphones on, gaming. When he saw Jack drag in his bag, he frowned. "What's your friend doing here?" I replied calmly. "Jack's staying for a while." "My house, my rules." Ryan shrugged, not too bothered, but I could see a flicker of unease. He had no idea what was coming. Jack wasted no time. The next morning at 5 a.m., his whistle pierced the air like a siren. I shot up out of reflex, heart pounding, even though I knew it was part of the plan. Ryan stumbled out of bed, bleary-eyed, muttering, "What's going on? You guys crazy?" Jack stood at his door in an army t-shirt, whistle in hand, barking, "Up, recruit! 5 a.m. out to the yard for a run, move!" Ryan looked at me, hoping I'd intervene, but I just crossed my arms. "Listen to Jack. New rules here." Ryan glared, but when Jack blew the whistle again, reluctantly dragged himself outside. I stood on the porch watching Jack lead Ryan around the backyard. Ryan was gasping after barely one lap, his t-shirt soaked with sweat. Jack ran beside him, shouting, "Knees up, kid, you're running like a duck." I stifled a laugh, but worry gnawed at me. Could Ryan handle this? Or would he call our parents and everything would fall apart? But Jack didn't give me time to doubt. After 30 minutes of running, he had Ryan stand at attention, checking his posture. Chest out, shoulders back. What are you, a soldier or a sack of potatoes? Ryan flushed but didn't argue. I knew he hated being compared, but Jack was a master at pushing buttons. After the run, Jack took Ryan to inspect his bedroom. I followed, curious to see what was next. Jack stood before Ryan's bed, a mess of tangled sheets and blankets, and shook his head. "What is this?" "A soldier's bed has 45-degree corners, kid," Ryan snapped. "I'm not a soldier." Jack didn't respond, just flipped the blankets onto the floor. "Fold it. Proper. Not good enough. You do it again." Ryan glared, but Jack's steely gaze shut him up. I stood there trying to look serious, but inside I was thrilled. Ryan muttered curses but started folding. After 3 failed attempts, Jack tossing the blankets each time for substandard work, Ryan was practically fuming but kept at it. I saw his hands shaking with frustration, but he didn't dare defy Jack. Jack's plan didn't stop there. After the morning, he declared, "This house is a barracks. Everything stays clean." Ryan was assigned chores, mopping the floor, washing dishes, vacuuming, all under Jack's supervision. Whenever Ryan half-assed it, Jack stood over him, arms crossed. "Wipe it again, I see that smudge." Ryan argued, "Why do I have to do this? It's not my house." Jack smirked. "Oh, now you know it's not your house? Good, but if you want to stay, you work." I stood by, pretending to read the paper but watching closely. Ryan shot me a dirty look, but I just shrugged. Listen to Jack. The evenings were the harshest. Jack set a 9 p.m. bedtime, pure military style. Ryan, used to gaming until 2 or 3 a.m., gaped. "What? Bed at 9? You kidding?" Jack wasn't kidding. He laid his thin mattress on Ryan's floor, announcing, "I'm sleeping here to make sure you're on time. Lights out, no gaming." Ryan tried starting his computer, but Jack yanked the plug. "Sleep, kid, or I blow the whistle all night." Ryan's face turned red with rage, but he was powerless. I heard him muttering in the dark, "You're all insane." The days that followed saw Jack tighten the screws. Every morning the whistle blared at 5 a.m. Ryan tried staying in bed once, but Jack stood at the door, blowing the whistle relentlessly until he got up, face twisted in misery. After runs came bed inspections. Ryan never passed, and Jack always flipped his blankets, forcing him to redo it. Ryan started looking sleep-deprived, eyes ringed with dark circles from the disrupted schedule. One time I saw him sitting on the porch holding a soda, staring into the distance. "What's wrong?" I asked gently. He mumbled, "This place is hell. I can't take it." I wanted to comfort him, but Jack signaled me to stay quiet. "Don't go soft," he whispered. He's close to breaking. But Ryan was tougher than I thought. I started to worry. If he called our parents, everything could collapse. And as I feared, one evening Ryan called Mom. I overheard him. "Mom, Bryce and this Jack guy turned the house into a boot camp. I can't take it." I grabbed the phone from him. "Mom, I'm not kicking him out. I'm just teaching him discipline." She sighed. "Bryce, don't overdo it. Ryan's young." I replied firmly. "Mom, if Ryan wants to stay, he follows the rules. I'm not doing anything wrong." Jack clapped my shoulder after the call. "Good job. Your parents have no grounds to interfere. Keep it up." But I wasn't sure. Each day Ryan grew more stressed. He wasn't smirking anymore, just sullen and irritable. Once when Jack made him wash dishes right after dinner, Ryan slammed a plate on the floor. "I'm not your soldier." Jack stayed calm. "But you're in a soldier's house. Do it or leave." Ryan glared at me, but I just crossed my arms. Jack's right. I started feeling conflicted. Part of me wanted Ryan to change, to become a responsible man. But I didn't want to push him to the breaking point. He was my brother, after all. Yet every time I looked at the house, now cleaner thanks to Jack, I remembered why I was doing this. This was my house, and I wouldn't lose it. Jack sensed my hesitation. One night after Ryan was asleep, he pulled me onto the porch. "Bryce, don't go soft. The kid needs this lesson. If you stop, he'll never grow up." I nodded, but my heart was heavy. I remembered when Ryan was 5, running after me in the yard, calling Brother Bryce with an innocent smile. But now, spoiled by our parents, he'd become a reckless, irresponsible version of himself. I wanted to save him, but first I had to save myself. Jack's plan was working. Ryan was wearing down, but he hadn't given up. I knew this battle was nearing its climax. One more push and things would change. Ryan, with his stubborn streak, didn't surrender easily. I realized this one Saturday afternoon when the roar of motorcycles echoed outside my house. I was in the kitchen brewing coffee when 3 of Ryan's gamer buddies swaggered in, laughing loudly, carrying bags of fast food and a couple of cases of beer. Ryan stood among them, looking smug like he'd just rallied reinforcements. "Bryce, Jack, my friends are just hanging out for a bit," he said, his tone dripping with defiance. I glanced at Jack, who was on the porch reading a military magazine. He raised an eyebrow, flashing a sly grin. "Fine by me. The more the merrier." I knew what Ryan was thinking. He'd brought his friends to back him up, hoping their numbers would intimidate Jack or at least embarrass me for my iron discipline. But he didn't know Jack. In the army, Jack could make an entire platoon of recruits quake with just a look. Ryan's friends, with their graphic tees, messy hair, and cocky attitudes, were nothing compared to the challenges Jack had faced. I crossed my arms, watching from the sidelines, a mix of anticipation and curiosity. This battle was about to get interesting. The group piled into the living room, firing up a game on the TV, laughing raucously and tossing beer cans everywhere. Ryan sat in the middle, acting like a kingpin, directing the chaos. "Tonight we're going all out," one of them, Kyle, shouted, gripping a controller. I saw the floor getting trashed again. Chip crumbs, sauce smudges on the table. Jack stood up, strolling in slowly, whistle in hand. "All right," he said, his voice low but sharp as a blade. "Play all you want, but you clean up after eating." "House rules." Ryan glared at him. "Come on, we're just having fun." But Jack didn't smile. He crossed his arms, his imposing frame blocking the doorway, his eyes cold as steel. "Have fun, sure, but cleaning's mandatory. Don't do it, you're out." Ryan's friends exchanged looks, chuckling awkwardly, thinking Jack was joking. But when they finished their feast, pizza, fried chicken wings, and beer, Jack didn't let it slide. He stood up, pointing at the mess on the table. "Clean it, now." Kyle, the boldest of the group, shot back, "Who are you to order us?" "This is Ryan's house." Jack stepped forward, towering over Kyle by a full head. "This is Bryce's house. You want to stay, follow the rules, or grab your stuff and go." Jack's voice was calm but menacing. I saw Kyle swallow hard, his eyes blinking rapidly. Ryan tried to intervene. "Chill, Jack, we'll clean up later." Jack shook his head. No later. Do it now. I stood back, heart pounding, trying not to laugh. Ryan's friends, despite their bravado, started squirming under Jack's icy stare. Finally, Kyle muttered something, got up, and dragged the other two with him. They shot Ryan dirty looks, as if blaming him for not warning them. Reluctantly, they picked up the trash, wiped the table, and washed dishes, all under Jack's watchful eye. He stood there, arms crossed, pointing out every missed spot. "There's a smudge, wipe it again," Ryan joined in, his face red, clearly humiliated. At 9 p.m., Jack blew his whistle. The shrill sound made the group jump, one of them dropping a controller. "Bedtime," Jack announced, his voice leaving no room for argument. "Turn off the TV, pack up the games. This barracks sleeps at 9 p.m. Ryan's friends gaped. One, Jake, protested, "You serious? 9 p.m.? We're not kids." Jack stepped forward, pointing at the door. "Not kids? Then you should know discipline. Sleep or leave." They looked to Ryan for backup, but he just lowered his head, muttering, "Just listen to him." I could see the defeat in his eyes. His friends started getting annoyed. Kyle turned to Ryan. "You said this place was chill. What's this crap?" Ryan didn't answer, silently shutting off the TV. Jack didn't stop there. He laid out his thin mattress on the living room floor, declaring, "I'm sleeping here to make sure you're all on time." Ryan's friends exchanged grimaces, their faces sour. They tried whispering among themselves, but one cough from Jack silenced them. At 9:30, when one tried sneaking a game on his phone, Jack sat up, snatching it away. "Sleep. I won't say it twice." This time, no one dared argue. I watched from a distance, feeling a rush of satisfaction. Ryan had brought in reinforcements, but Jack was dismantling them, army style. The next morning, Jack's whistle blared at 5 a.m. I heard groans from the living room where Ryan's friends had crashed on the sofa and floor. "Up! Time to run!" Jack's voice boomed like thunder. The group stumbled out of bed, faces twisted with resentment. Ryan tried dragging them to the yard, but their frustration was obvious. After 15 minutes of running, more like stumbling, Kyle stopped, gasping, "I'm done." "Ryan, how do you live like this?" Jake chimed in. "You said this place was laid back. It's like a damn reform camp." Ryan tried to defend himself. "Just stick it out, you'll get used to it." But their eyes said it all. They wanted nothing to do with Jack's barracks. By noon, when Jack assigned floor mopping duty, Kyle snapped, "I'm out of here. Ryan, you're on your own." The three of them grabbed their stuff, slung their bags over their shoulders, and left without a goodbye. Ryan stood there, face flushed with shame and anger. "You guys ditching me?" he shouted after them, but no one looked back. I looked at Ryan, my emotions mixed. Part of me felt sorry for him, abandoned by his friends, worn down by Jack's regimen. But mostly I felt he deserved it. He thought bringing his buddies would overpower Jack, but they'd all been tamed. Jack clapped my shoulder, smirking. The recruits lost his squad, now it's just him. Ryan slunk to his room, slamming the door. I heard music start, but it wasn't as loud as before. Maybe he was trying to hide his defeat. That evening, I sat with Jack on the porch. "What do you think?" I asked. He shrugged. "He's close to breaking. A few more days." I nodded, but my heart was heavy. Ryan was alone now, and I knew how that felt. But I also knew if I didn't keep going, he'd never change. This fight wasn't just about reclaiming my house. It might be about helping my brother grow, or at least teaching him the lesson our parents never did. The following days, Jack tightened the screws even further. Ryan now resembled a cornered animal, dark circles under his eyes from lack of sleep, shoulders slumped from exhaustion, and a hostile glare every time he looked at me or Jack. I could see him weakening, but he remained defiant. Every morning, Jack's whistle blared at 5 a.m., dragging Ryan out of bed for a run. Every night, Jack slept on the floor in Ryan's room, ensuring he didn't stay up past 9 p.m. Ryan stopped blasting music or gaming. He seemed utterly drained, silently following Jack's orders, though always with muttered curses. Watching him, I felt a mix of pity and anger. Pity because he was my brother. Anger because he'd brought this on himself. One morning, a torrential rain poured down. North Carolina rain isn't gentle. It came crashing like it meant to drown everything, with wind howling through the trees and my backyard turning into a muddy swamp. I woke up assuming Jack would give Ryan a break from running, but no. Jack was on schedule. At 5 a.m., his whistle cut through the storm's roar. I heard Ryan yell from his room, "It's pouring, you want me to run in this? Are you insane?" Jack stood at the door in an army raincoat, his voice cold as steel. "Rain's perfect. Builds character, kid. Get to the yard now." Ryan glared at me, hoping I'd step in, but I just crossed my arms and shrugged. "Listen to Jack. There's a raincoat." Ryan reluctantly put on my old raincoat and trudged outside. Jack didn't just make him run. He assigned an extra task, cleaning the driveway caked with mud from the rain. "Scrub it until I can see your reflection," Jack shouted, standing under the porch overhang, supervising. Ryan knelt, scrubbing with a rag, his face twisted in misery, rain streaming through his hair. I stood in the kitchen watching through the window, my heart torn. Part of me wanted to run out, pull him inside, dry him off, and say everything would be okay. But the bigger part knew this was the lesson he needed. Jack knew it too. He glanced at me, his eyes saying, "Let me handle this." Ryan scrubbed the driveway for nearly 2 hours, hands trembling from the cold, clothes soaked. Every time he slacked, Jack pointed, "That spot's still dirty. Do it again." Ryan didn't argue anymore. Maybe he was too tired. When he finished, he stood swaying and shot Jack a look of both fury and despair. "I can't take this anymore," he muttered, his voice breaking. Jack didn't respond, just nodded. "Go shower, kid. Don't catch a cold." Ryan gave me one last glare before trudging inside, leaving muddy boot prints on the floor. Prints Jack would make him clean later. That afternoon, I saw Ryan packing. He dragged a suitcase from his room, tossing in clothes, headphones, and random items. "This place is a damn military prison," he muttered, avoiding my eyes. I sat on the sofa, keeping my voice steady. "I'm not stopping you from staying, Ryan. But these are the rules here." He paused, gripping the suitcase zipper, then turned to me. "You think you won? You just made me hate you more." His words cut like a knife, but I didn't show it. "If you hate me for wanting you to be better, so be it," I replied. Ryan said nothing more, just hauled his suitcase to the door, called a taxi, and left in the unrelenting rain. I stood on the porch watching the taxi disappear, my heart heavy. I'd reclaimed my house, but why didn't it feel like a victory? I turned back inside, where Jack was cleaning the mud Ryan left behind. "He's gone," I said, my voice hollow. Jack laughed, clapping my shoulder. "Mission accomplished, Captain. You've retaken your territory." I nodded but couldn't smile. "What now?" "My parents will kill me." Jack shrugged. "Don't overthink it. One step at a time. Now get ready for a BBQ. We're celebrating." A few hours later, my phone rang. It was my mom, her voice trembling with anger. "Bryce, how could you be so cruel to your brother? He's back here, told us everything. You and that Jack guy treated him like a slave." I took a deep breath, staying calm. "Mom, I didn't kick Ryan out. I was teaching him discipline. He chose to leave." My dad cut in, his tone harsh. "What kind of brother are you? Ryan's struggling and you treat him like a soldier." My blood boiled, but I kept my voice even. "Mom, Dad, if Ryan wanted to stay, he had to follow the rules. I didn't do anything wrong. He's 25, not a kid." There was a long silence, then my mom sighed. "You've disappointed us, Bryce." They hung up, leaving me feeling like I'd been stabbed in the chest. I sank onto the sofa, staring at the house, now clean and quiet. No more beer cans, no blaring music. But the silence didn't bring the joy I'd expected. I thought of Ryan as a kid, running after me, beaming with a bright smile. Now he hated me, and my parents had turned their backs. Jack walked in, saw my face, and pulled me out to the backyard. "Don't overthink it," he said. "You did the right thing. Now let's party. Consider it a celebration of liberated territory. We fired up the BBQ, the smell of grilling meat filling the air. Jack brought out beers and played soft country music. Mrs. Smith, the neighbor, smelled the food and stopped by with a plate of homemade cookies. "Your house is quieter now, Bryce," she smiled. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Thanks, ma'am." Jack raised his beer. "To victory." I clinked my glass, but my heart stayed heavy. Ryan was gone, but the war with my family wasn't over. I knew my parents would call again, keep blaming me. But I also knew if I hadn't done this, I'd have lost myself. That night I lay in my bed now clean and neatly made, military style. I thought about Ryan, wondering what he was doing at our parents' house. Probably gaming or cursing me under his breath. I wanted to call, to apologize, but Jack's words echoed, "Don't go soft." I'd given Ryan a chance, but he chose his path. Maybe this was the lesson he needed, painful as it was. The weeks that followed brought peace back to my house. No more scattered beer cans, no blaring music, no lingering cigarette smoke. Each morning I woke early, brewed coffee, and sat on the porch watching the sunrise. The backyard garden, once overrun with weeds, was now cleared with new rows of vegetables planted. My neighbor, Mrs. Smith, started smiling when she saw me. "Your place is so much quieter now, Bryce," she said, handing me a plate of homemade cookies. I smiled back. "Thanks, ma'am. Things are getting back on track." But inside I felt a void. Ryan was gone and my parents hadn't called. Their silence hurt more than their accusations. I tried to focus on life. The Army Reserve kept me busy with periodic training, and my part-time job at a security firm kept my routine steady. But every time I stepped into the house, I thought of Ryan. Not the messy, irresponsible Ryan, but the 5-year-old who chased me around the yard calling Brother Bryce with a radiant smile. I wondered if I'd been too harsh. Was there another way to help him without pushing him away? But then I remembered his smug look when he took over my house. My parents' favoritism, and I knew I wasn't wrong. I'd fought to protect what was mine, and I'd won. The victory just didn't taste as sweet as I'd expected. Months passed, and I grew accustomed to the quiet. Jack still visited, bringing beer and soldier-style humor. "See, your barracks is stable now," he said, clapping my shoulder. I smiled, but didn't reply. I didn't want to gloat over a victory when my family was still fractured. Ryan hadn't reached out, and my parents' calls were rare, their voices cold and distant. I knew they were still upset, but I wasn't going to apologize. I'd done what I had to do. Then one day my mom called. "Ryan got a job," she said, a hint of pride in her voice. "At an electronics store, he's trying." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. Good for him. But I wasn't hopeful. Ryan had held jobs before and sabotaged them with his lazy attitude. I just hoped this time would be different. A few weeks later, though, Mom called again, her voice heavy with disappointment. "He got fired, Bryce. Late too often, arguing with his boss." I sighed, unsurprised. "Mom, he needs to learn responsibility," I said gently. She went silent, then hung up. I knew she was disappointed, not just with Ryan, but with me. One morning, a package appeared at my door. No sender's name, just my name on the label. I opened it and found a training whistle, identical to the one Jack used to drill Ryan. Inside was a note in Ryan's scrawled handwriting. "You won." Maybe I need to take a hard look at myself. I stood there, holding the whistle, frozen. His words were brief, but hit like a punch to the chest. Ryan didn't apologize or admit fault, but the whistle and note were the first sign he'd recognized something. I smiled, placing the whistle on the living room bookshelf next to a photo of me and my army buddies. It was like a trophy, not to brag about, but to remind me of this battle and of Ryan. I called Jack, telling him about the package. He laughed over the phone. "The kid surrendered. Told you, iron discipline always works." I chuckled, but my feelings were mixed. Was Ryan really changing, or was this just a moment of weakness? I didn't know, but at least he'd acknowledged I was right, even a little. A few weeks later, my parents called. "Bryce, come home this weekend," Dad said, his tone serious. We need to talk about Ryan. I agreed, though nervous. I drove to their small suburban house 20 minutes from mine. When I walked in, Ryan was on the sofa, eyes down, hands clasped tightly. My parents sat across from him, their faces stern. "Sit, Bryce," Mom said, pointing to a chair. I sat, feeling like I was walking into a courtroom. Dad started, "We need to talk about Ryan's future. He can't keep going like this." I glanced at Ryan, but he didn't meet my eyes. Mom continued, "We've spoiled him too much, Bryce. Maybe you were right. He needs discipline." Her words caught me off guard. It was the first time they'd admitted fault in how they'd raised Ryan. I recounted everything: Jack, the barracks, the whistle. Ryan looked up, face flushed, but didn't argue. "I know I messed up," he mumbled, so quiet I barely heard. "But your house, it was too much." I wanted to say something, but Dad raised a hand. "Bryce, you did what you thought was right. But now, we need to help Ryan, as a family." We talked for hours, making a plan. Ryan would look for a new job but follow a strict schedule. I suggested a trade school, and my parents agreed to fund it, on the condition that Ryan take more responsibility. For the first time, I felt our family was united. Ryan didn't make promises, but his eyes weren't hostile anymore. Maybe the whistle was his first step toward self-reflection. Driving home, I felt lighter. The war with Ryan was over, but the journey to help him grow was just beginning. I called Jack, telling him everything. He laughed. "See? Soldiers never lose." I laughed too, this time genuinely. A few mornings later, I stood on my porch, coffee in hand. The sunrise cast a golden glow over the garden, and the house was quiet, clean. I thought of Ryan, the whistle on the shelf, my family. I hadn't won completely, but I'd reclaimed my house and, more importantly, planted a seed of change in Ryan. Sometimes the sweetest revenge, I thought, is turning a troublemaker into a better version of themselves, or making them run for the hills. I sipped my coffee, smiled, and stepped inside, ready for a new day. Time passed faster than I expected. Fall arrived, the oak leaves in the yard turning a vibrant red, and the North Carolina air grew crisp. I stayed busy with Army Reserve training and my security firm job, but my thoughts often drifted to Ryan. The whistle on the bookshelf wasn't just a reminder of victory. It was a symbol of hope that he'd change. I didn't call or text him wanting him to find his own way, but whenever my parents called, I asked, "How's Ryan doing?" Mom's replies were brief. "He's trying, Bryce, don't worry." Then one day, Mom called, her voice brimming with excitement. "Ryan got a new job. He's working at a security system installation company. He's been more diligent this time. His boss is praising him." I smiled over the phone, a wave of relief washing over me. "That's great. Hope he keeps it up." Mom laughed. "Don't be too hard on him. He's changing." I didn't say anything, but I hoped she was right. The old Ryan, lazy and irresponsible, was fading, making way for a new version. I didn't dare hope too much, but the whistle on the shelf made me believe the seed of discipline Jack and I planted was starting to sprout. Winter came, bringing the festive buzz of Christmas. I got a card from my parents inviting me to a Christmas party at their house with a note. "Ryan wants you to come. He has a surprise." I was curious but wary. The last time we met, Ryan had glared at me with resentment. Still, I agreed, driving to their house on a snowy afternoon. Their small home was decked out, twinkling Christmas lights, a big tree in the living room, and the faint smell of gingerbread cookies wafting from the kitchen. When I walked in, Mom hugged me tightly. "You're here. Come in, everyone's waiting." I saw Ryan by the tree wearing a neatly pressed shirt, a stark contrast to the disheveled t-shirt Ryan of old. Next to him was a young woman with neatly tied brown hair and a gentle smile. "Bryce," Ryan said a bit shyly. "This is Brenda, my girlfriend." I shook Brenda's hand, struck by her maturity. Unlike Tara, the red-haired, brash ex-girlfriend, Brenda seemed kind and down to earth. "Nice to meet you, Bryce," she said, her eyes sincere. I nodded, smiling. "Nice to meet you too." The party was warm and cozy. No tension, no arguments. My parents smiled more, sharing stories of when Ryan and I were kids. For the first time in years, Ryan joined in without muttering or sulking. He talked about his new job at the security installation company where he was learning teamwork and punctuality. Got chewed out by my boss a few times, he chuckled. But I'm trying. Don't want to get fired again. Brenda held his hand, her eyes encouraging. Watching them, I felt an unfamiliar joy. This Ryan wasn't the freeloader who trashed my house. He was growing up. As we gathered around the dinner table, Mom suddenly turned to me. Bryce, you're almost 34. When are you getting married? Look at Ryan, he's got such a nice girlfriend. Dad nodded. Exactly. We need some grandkids. I laughed, a bit embarrassed. Slow down, Mom, Dad, I'm still busy running my barracks. Ryan burst out laughing. What barracks? No whistle, Bryce? The whole room erupted in laughter, and for the first time I felt no distance between us. Brenda chimed in. Ryan told me about that whistle. You really scared him silly. Ryan blushed, muttering, Drop it already. But his eyes held no hostility, just the shy embarrassment of a younger brother. After dinner, as everyone sat by the fireplace, Ryan pulled me aside. Bryce, he said quietly but clearly, thanks for what you did before. I know I was wrong. At your house, I hated you, but looking back, I needed that wake-up call. I looked at him, caught off guard. You don't need to thank me, I said. I just wanted you to be better. Ryan nodded and went back to Brenda, holding her hand. I stood there, feeling a weight lift from my chest. After all the turmoil, my family was finally on the right path. Driving home that night, I thought about the past months. Ryan had moved out to a small apartment near his job. The new gig was stabilizing him, and Brenda seemed to be keeping him on track. My parents were no longer playing favorites, starting to believe in discipline, the very thing I'd fought for. I pulled up to my house, stepped onto the porch, and gazed at the moonlight on the garden. My home, once ravaged, was now my sanctuary again. I thought of Mom's words. When are you getting married? Maybe it was time to think about my future, a family of my own where I could pass on the lessons I'd learned, just as I had with Ryan. I walked inside, glancing at the whistle on the shelf. It wasn't just a trophy, it was a symbol of change. Ryan had changed, my family had changed, and I was ready for a new chapter. I smiled, turned off the light, and went to bed with a genuine sense of happiness, for the first time in a long while.